Can't they just make more of them? Or can they not make more of them?
That's a good question. Junior asked, why can't they just make more of them? I mean, if people want to buy them, why not just make as many as people want to buy? Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, this is a new custom 8 nanometer production process Samsung is doing for just NVIDIA. And those machines can only make so many wafers, the 300 millimeter wafers, per hour. Each hour they can spit out maybe 2,000 wafers. Each wafer contains a certain number of chips on it. Some of those chips will become 3090s, some will become 3080s, some will become 3070s, and some won't become any of those. Some will become binned lower chips that they sell next year. Because they'll put all the chips that, let's say they get 50 GPU dies off of a wafer. And let's say they can produce 2,000 wafers an hour.
Okay.
What's 50 times 2,000? 10,000.
Yeah.
That's 10,000 an hour. At 24 hours a day, that's 240,000 a day. If they run those machines for a month, how many is that? 7.5 million?
240,000 times 30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
7.2 million. Now, a couple things to consider in the 7.2 million number. Some of those chips are useless. They're just poorly manufactured and they throw them away. When they first start making new chips, more than 50% are often thrown away. The yields can be less than 50%. So you could have that number immediately and it becomes 3.5 million.
So do they scrap them and make... What do they do with it?
They just crush them, shred them. They're just trash. They'll take a few and make keychains out of them and do fun demos with them.
Do they recycle them or do they put them in the dumpster?
Oh, no, they recycle them. They'll melt them down. The silicon in them isn't worth anything, but there's precious metals and gold and a few other things in there that they pull out. It just goes into a big bin of recycling. So there's a bunch of that. Some of them will become 3090s. Some will become 3080s, some will become 3070s, but they will also be pre-binning and pre-processing for the upcoming 3070 Ti's, the 3080 Ti's. They'll also be taking some chips that only partially pass, and they'll be setting them aside for upcoming 3050s and 3060s.
Correct.
Now, when those come out, they'll probably have enough chips set aside that the 3060 and 3050s will be plentiful and not too hard to find.
There we go.
Consider also they have to provide this worldwide. They have to provide chips to 30 different graphics card companies and OEMs. They have to supply Acer and Asus and HP and Lenovo and Dell. They have to supply MSI, Gigabyte, Palette, Galax. There's not just the United States. They have to provide both in-store retailers, online retailers, OEMs with chips and cards across the entire planet. They have to set aside probably 10,000 cards just for press samples.
Yeah, and that.
And then you have to consider they also are legally required to set aside a certain number for warranty replacements and repairs and whatnot. And they don't know until way late in the process how many good cards they'll get that are actually into boxes. Because it's a bit of a gamble. How many good wafers do they get? Now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, the wafers they produce, the yields will go up. On a mature process, 80% of your chips may be good. But even on 5-year-old extremely mature processes, they probably still have a 5% waste factor. But see, this is why older chips can be made so cheaply, is because the process is mature. But this is like state-of-the-art, the best of the best, and I'm sure the waste right now is terrible.
Can't they dedicate money to fix that problem? Or is that not how it works?
They can, but remember, the entire purpose of this goal is to be profitable. So it's a balance between how much do you spend versus how many can you make and sell. Because if they make too many, at some point they have to lower the price. A little bit of artificial scarcity, a little bit of extra demand that sells them out makes it a desirable product. They don't necessarily want an unlimited supply. Because if it sells out in day one and it takes a month to restock, as soon as it comes back at full price, people are much more likely to hit the buy button because they're like, these things aren't going down in price anytime soon because they sell out as soon as they get in.
Yep.
It holds the price. Whereas if they're plentiful from day one, at some point that drives the price down.
Well, not to be plentiful, but just to have enough so they're not out of stock all.
But that's supply and demand.
You want a really good example of this?
Yeah.
Do you remember the PlayStation Mini?
Yes.
It launched at $99. You can find them today for $35. Brand new all day long.
Made a lot of it.
They made too many of them.
Oh.
The Nintendo Mini and the Super Nintendo Mini, the classics from real Nintendo, to this day still sell for more than retail new.
Because there wasn't that many.
They made multiple production runs, but they spaced them out over time. They created the perception of value, and they have held their value to this day. We could right now sell our used ones for at least the new price.
Oh, wow. There you go. That's how
But
you do
there's a
it.
difference between not having any and then having too much. There's middle ground.
Would you trust that the fact that they make billions of dollars in profit might indicate that their strategy might not be terrible?
Yeah.
Just a thought. I hear what you're saying, but you have to keep in mind that NVIDIA's primary goal is not to put an RTX 3090 in everybody's hands. Their goal is to make billions of dollars in profit.
Aren't they also the same people who make these awesome product names?
What's wrong with RTX 3090?
No, the CPUs.
Oh, Intel?
That's Intel.
Intel's an interesting conversation.